Dr. Jerry, you got the whole world waiting. Been ready for you to start the conversation. Your point of view, it got the haters confused. Leave it up to you to bring us all the good news. Positive vibes and the sex appeal too. Dr. Andre Jerry, can I get an interview?
Good evening and welcome to Live with Dr. Andre Jerry, your trusted space for real conversations, practical wisdom, and purpose-driven insight. I'm your host, Dr. Andre Jerry, and we're broadcasting live from beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico. This show is heard in over 128 countries, and we featured artists, authors, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from across the globe. Wherever you're tuning in from tonight, on behalf of myself and the Artist First Radio Network, I want to thank you for being part of the conversation. Your continued leadership truly means more than you know. Okay, so before we move forward tonight, I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Stephen Bond. He was our guest from last month's episode. We got a lot of great feedback on that show. He joined us to discuss his powerful new book called Suffering in Bleak Silence. It's now available on Amazon. And this book offers an intimate look into the often unspoken mental health struggles of public school educators. Some really interesting stories in this book, and it's stories that teachers live quietly every single day. So I really urge you to check it out, especially if you have children in school or you simply just want a deeper understanding of the people who are entrusted with educating the next generation. So, like I said, pick up a copy. You'll really love this book, and it really has a way of changing how you see and appreciate and interact with teachers long after you turn the last page. All right, so, hey, Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to 2026. We made it through another year, and I don't say that lightly. Some of us came through with a lot of wins, and that's great. Some of us came through with lessons. Some of us came through a little banged up, a little scraped and tired and, you know, all of that. But by the grace of God, we're still here. We're still here. We made it. And, you know, sometimes that alone is the win. Now, this is the part I don't want us to gloss over so much or rush past. We got a lot to do this year. We all have our individual goals, all the things that we're trying to get done. And not because we're forcing it, not because we're competing with anybody, but just because we are clear on what our goals are. Most of us didn't walk into this new year empty-handed. We walked in carrying something. It could be a financial goal. It could be getting healthier, losing weight, or just feeling better in your own body. Maybe this is the year that you finally stop surviving and start being intentional about the kind of life that you say you want. Whatever that thing is for you this year, I want you to hear me when I say this. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe that you are more than capable than you give yourself credit for. And honestly, you probably already have more than enough of what you need than you think you do. And so this is why I love New Year's. New Year's matters. It gives us a time to pause and reset and gives us a chance to look back and just be real with ourselves for a minute. What worked last year? What didn't work? Where did we actually grow? And then where are those places where we avoided doing the work? We all have those areas too. What parts of our lives have we been neglecting and that now we can give our attention to and our focus and our care? That kind of reflection matters because 2026, I don't know how you feel about it, but to me it doesn't feel like just any other year on the calendar. There's something different about this year, something different energetically, mentally, even spiritually. This year feels like it's calling for alignment with less forcing, you know, less performing, and more intention, more honesty, more clarity about what we say yes to and what we finally let go of. So tonight I want to start unpacking what 2026 represents, and not just in terms of goals and resolutions, but in terms of energy, alignment, and manifestation. What kind of year is this really asking us to have? And maybe the bigger question here is who is this year asking us to become? So last year I made some pretty big life changes, and those who tune in regularly to the show know a lot of this, but just for the benefit of those who may be newer to the show, I officially retired from federal civil service at the age of 46. And that still feels really wild to say it out loud. But, you know, I stepped away from that whole chase of chasing titles and promotions and the next position after the next position, the next paycheck. You know, what people call the grind. Some people call it the matrix. But it's that feeling where you're always reaching, always having to prove yourself, always being performative or having to be performative. Last year, I also moved back to Puerto Rico, this small island here that I fell in love with over a decade ago. And, you know, coming back here wasn't just about location. It was about slowing down and enjoying life, breathing, getting back to myself. Last year, I really took time to just be, to reconnect with nature, to go to the beach, to sit with myself, meditate more. And in that space, I started shedding some weight, not just physical weight. I've lost some weight, too. I pretty much got rid of my little dad bod. But I'm talking about some of the heavy stuff, the weight of expectations, you know, the weight of trying to be everything to everybody, the weight of people-pleasing all the time, and constantly having to adjust myself so that other people can be comfortable. I had to stop and ask myself, where did I even learn this stuff from? Where did I learn it from? Because it definitely didn't come from my parents. My parents weren't like that. But somewhere along the way, I picked up this habit of shrinking, this habit of overgiving and bending and contorting myself into whatever shape that felt acceptable to that particular group of people. And, you know, honestly, I think it goes back to the bullying. Those of you who follow the show, you know, I talked about how I was bullied growing up. Just wanting to be accepted, wanting to belong to a group or, you know, something, be accepted. And when you grow up, people who've been bullied will understand this. When you grow up feeling different, you start believing that you're the problem. You start believing that you're not like everyone else, so something's got to be wrong with you. That's how you grow up thinking. So you start this performing, and you start this people-pleasing stuff, and you start abandoning little bitty pieces of yourself just so you can fit in and be liked by a certain group of people. And that's something that I've been actively trying to unlearn. So let me give you a real-life example of what I mean. And this is something that literally just happened like last week. Okay, so last week, my partner and I, we went out with a couple of friends. And let me be clear. Some of y'all know this about me. I'm a homebody, okay? I prefer to stay at home, but I was in a decent enough mood, you know, so I just went with it. And the night actually started out fine. But somewhere along the way, that familiar feeling started to kick in. It's like a social fatigue. And I could just feel myself just slowly shutting down and defaulting back to my introverted mode, you know, and pulling out my phone. I pull out my phone not because I'm rude. I pull out my phone because it's a mechanism to help me cope. You know, I'm just trying to survive the moment without being completely drained, you know, because I don't like crowded spaces. I don't like bars and things like that. You know, on top of all of that, everybody was speaking Spanish, which is fine. I actually prefer that people speak Spanish around me because I have to learn. And I can understand some of it, but not enough to fully participate. You know what I mean? So when you're sitting at a table and you're kind of present, but you're not really included, it kind of does something to you mentally. And it's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain unless you've lived it. And then there's the restaurant hopping. Okay, so we had dinner at one place, right? We were there for over an hour. It was fine. We had drinks at another place. And then you would think the night would end there. We end up going to a bar after that. So, and let me tell you about the last bar that we went to. We got there. We found a place for all of us to sit, right? And just a couple of minutes after sitting down, some guy just randomly put a gram of weed on the table. And he told me that, I don't know what he said. He said, this is on the house, or this is for you, or something like that, no charge. He said some shit like that. And I just kind of looked at him. And then I looked at the people who I was with, and they were giving me this look like, Andre, he's giving you free drugs. And, like it was a mint or something. And I was like, I'm not taking no drugs from some stranger. Are you crazy? And so one of the young ladies who was with us, she ended up taking it and putting it in her pocket or whatever. And I was like, good, take it, because I'm not touching it. Okay, so how about the next day? She's sick as a dog. Even right now, she's at home sick. She has some type of mysterious illness. I don't know what. That's why I don't mess with drugs and shit like that, and especially from people I don't know. I don't like bars anyway. It just was not my type of vibe. If I'm going to go to a bar, I'd rather for it to be something kind of more upscale, or if it's not upscale, just let it be more of like a chilled, relaxed vibe that's kind of exclusive, and you can have a conversation without yelling over music. I guess I'm turning into an old man. But yeah, if I'm going to go out, that would be more of my type of vibe. Now, I will say this about Puerto Rico. This is something that I love. Weed is illegal here, unless you have a prescription or something. But here, people don't bother you. And almost everywhere you go, you're going to smell somebody smoking weed. You'll see people smoking weed in the park or on their patio at home. No one cares. No one's going to bother you unless you're like disturbing the peace or something. People just leave you the hell alone here. It's not like in the States where you have to constantly look over your shoulder, and there's speed traps on the highways and roadblocks and all this type of stuff. There is none of that here. It's a very chill vibe here in Puerto Rico. There's no racial profiling. There's no harassment from the police. It's just chill. But if you are a social person, I'm not, but if you're a social person, you like to go out and, be seen and enjoy the nightlife and all the things, you'll love it here. You'll love it. Even like if you're a backpacker type and you like to do zip lining and hiking and do all that adventurous stuff, all of that is here in Puerto Rico. I know I sound like a tourist ad right now, but the point I'm trying to make here is that there's something for everybody. So by all means, if you have not visited Puerto Rico yet, by all means, please come and visit. You will love it. But anyway, back to hanging out with my friends. So when we left the house, it was like 6:30 in the evening. That night, we didn't get home till almost midnight. And for an introvert like me, that's a lot. It's like an endurance test. That's not a night out for me. That's an endurance test. But by the time we got to that last spot where the guy offered me the drugs, I was done by that point. I had completely tapped out. I was quiet. I was just on my phone. I was just trying to get through it, And I guess that shift from the second place to the third place was kind of noticeable because all of a sudden, everybody switched seats. And the lady that was sitting to the end on the other side, she sat right next to me. She was also with our party. And she just started talking to me and asking me questions and stuff like that and trying to force conversation, just so I can feel included. And I get it. I got what she was trying to do. But, and she wasn't asking anything invasive or anything like that. She mostly was asking about my former work in public service and stuff like that. Okay, so here's the thing with me. Yes, I've had a very full, accomplished career, but I've never really been very good at talking about it casually, especially when I'm already like mentally drained. And I was talking to her and I could hear myself talking and I was kind of stumbling over my words and I had that awkward feeling. I wasn't making much eye contact with her. And internally, I'm just thinking to myself, why am I even doing this? Why am I here? And no disrespect to the lady, because like I said, she was just trying to be nice and make sure I was, feel included and all of that. And the only reason why I entertained the conversation with her was just out of politeness and because she's an older lady. So it sort of was just a respect thing. But, I thought about it later on. I was like, yeah, she's older than me and all of that, but I'm almost 50 years old. Like, I don't have to entertain this if I don't feel like it. And that's when it hit me that, this isn't me being just antisocial. This is a form of anxiety. It's a form of, I guess you could call it overextension. It's me staying somewhere a little longer than my nerves, my nervous system can handle, just all out of being polite. And I realized that I'm kind of tired of that. And I know I'm not the only person that does it. But, like I said, I'm damn near 50 years old. I shouldn't feel obligated to force myself to be social when I don't have the mental bandwidth to do it. And so I feel like I've earned the right to not have to answer questions or over-explain or overshare just so nobody feels awkward. I should have stayed my ass at home. Or I should have just told the lady, look, hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not really in the mood to talk right now. And I know that would have made for an uncomfortable moment, and, but at least it would have been honest. It would have been honest. And so I'm at this place in my life where honesty matters more than just being nice. I've accepted I won't say flaws. I've accepted myself. I know I'm deeply introverted. I know that. I'm kind of a weirdo. I'm fine with that. I don't enjoy a lot of socializing, but I'm done forcing myself into these situations that drain me just so I can meet other people's expectations. I'm sick of that. That's the part of what I've been trying to unlearn, and I'm going to be working on that more this year. So next time when there's an invitation to hang out and I know that I'm not 100% up for it, I'm just going to politely decline. I'm going to decline, thank them for the invitation, and, I don't care who gets mad about it. And that takes me to friendships. And this has nothing to do with, the people I was hanging out with. This is just in general. But with me, I don't know if it's just me, I can really do without friend groups. You remember how back in the day, some of us used to live for a good friend group like Sex in the City or something? People we could let our hair down with and share inappropriate jokes with and talk shit about people and say and do all the things. But as you get older, or at least as I have gotten older, it's just a little different for me. Today, my circle is so small, it's almost like a period. A couple of shows back, it's probably been about 6 or 7 shows ago, but I told you guys about a little experiment that my one friend, Emily, suggested that I do. And that experiment was a game changer for me, and it really helped me to remove a lot of fringe people from my life and hangers on, and it helped me to tighten my inner circle. And for those that missed that episode or maybe new to the show, I'm just going to quickly recap that social experiment for you. And this is for anybody listening who feels burdened by always being the one reaching out, checking in on folks, keeping in touch, bringing everybody together, being a sounding board for everyone, always the one giving advice, leading the group chat, loaning money, always the one sending a happy birthday, all that stuff. I want to tell you exactly what my friend Emily told me, okay? She told me, and this was back when I was in Saudi Arabia the first time. She said, I want you to go silent for 3 months. I'll do you one better because really it doesn't even take 3 months. You can do just 1 month. Go silent for 1 month. Don't call anyone. Don't text anyone. Only respond if somebody sends you a message or calls you. In that month, I want you to take note of all the people who reach out to check on you, to see how you're doing, to see if you're alive, to see if you need anything. At the end of that month, I promise you, you will be surprised by how many people can go 1 month, 2 months, even up to 3 months without hearing from you at all. They won't even bother to call or text to say, hello, you okay, go to hell, fuck you, nothing. And it'd be the very people that you've done the most for, or the people that you have gone out of your way to help. It'd be them. Now, I want to say this experiment isn't for everybody, because it can be very humbling and very eye-opening. If you're someone that's tender-hearted or someone that doesn't deal with isolation very well, then I would urge you to exercise caution if you're going to do something like this, because it can lead to severe depression, particularly if you already have mental health issues going on. So just be mindful of that. But do take note of the people who do call in to, or text to check in on you, because those are going to be your people. Those are going to be your people. Moving forward, those are the people that you're going to go above and beyond for. Those are the people who, when they call, you're going to answer it instead of letting it go to voicemail. Does anybody even check voicemail anymore? Like, seriously, I don't know. I haven't checked my voicemail in like years. There could be messages on there from, job offers, family. People could have passed away. The lottery could have been telling me I won something. I wouldn't know. I literally have not checked my voicemail since 2024. I'm scared to check it at this point. Listen, if you need to contact me, and if it's important, please text me or send me an email or something that I can read, because I need to see if it's something that I even have the mental capacity to deal with, because I'm all about peace right now at this time in my life. I will go out of my way. I will capitulate. I will walk away. I will relocate. I'll do whatever I need to do to maintain my peace. Yesterday, I saw a video. It was a video on YouTube. This guy was talking about family and other things and cutting people off. And he was saying, if you got to cut family off, then cut them off. He said, blood is not thicker than my peace of mind. And I just love the way he put that. I feel like he hit the nail on the head. Blood is not thicker than my peace of mind. That's exactly how I feel right now. And it was just refreshing to hear someone else share that same point of view, because when you start finally putting yourself first and unsubscribing from everything that starts to chip away at your peace of mind, including family sometimes in some instances, you almost feel guilty at first. You sort of feel like the bad guy. And it can be a really lonely road for a lot of people unless you're built a certain way. For me, I love solitude. I love solitude. I love being alone. It doesn't make me feel lonely or anything like that. If anything, being alone recharges me. And that's often when my best creative energy flows, But yeah, needless to say, my inner circle has gotten really small over the years, and I'm totally okay with that. Meeting new people and acquaintances, all of that is fine, but I really don't have a desire to make friends the way I used to back in the day. For me, it's just more trouble than it's worth. And you know what else can be challenging too? When you're dating someone or you're married to someone and they have pre-existing friends or friend groups that you kind of sort of get grandfathered into, sometimes that can be kind of dicey, because maybe you don't really like their friends like that, especially when there are other couples in the group, because invariably, you know how this goes, guys. There's always going to be one person in a group that you like better than the other one, and it never fails. It's especially with couples. There's always one that's cool, and then there's one that's not so cool. I really want to say something else. I'm not going to say that. But basically, there's always one bitch. And a lot of times, and I don't mean women, because if you haven't noticed, and I've said this to some people might take this the wrong way, men are the new bitches. I've been saying this for years, I stand on it. Some of the bitchiest people I have come across over the years have been men. I don't know what that's about, and I feel like women are the new men. I think, not even me, think about any married couple that you know personally. Think about any married couple, and think about who really wears the pants in that relationship and who runs the show. You don't have to answer because I already know. I already know it's her. 8, 9 times out of 10. Think about your job. Who's running the show at your job? Who's bossing everyone around? Who's running your company's HR department? Oh, HR. Think about your company's HR department. You probably can count the number of men in HR on one hand. HR are the gatekeepers, by the way. You guys know this, right? They know all of your business. HR knows where all the bodies are buried. They know who has drug and alcohol problems. They know who's about to get fired, who's about to get hired. They know everything. And you can go complain to them if you want to about shit that's going on in the workplace and what's fair and what's not. You can do that if you want to. And they will make you think that they are your advocate. They'll let you think that. And they will let you spill your guts out and tell everything. But trust and believe, your personnel file is being annotated with coded language that signals you are not a team player. Just hear me on that. This is what happens. You'll be applying for promotions, and you might even get interviewed a couple of times, but it's just a formality. But you will not be selected. Okay, I'm going off on a tangent. My point is that HR knows everybody's business. They're not your friend. If you think any of that stuff that you tell them is private, you need to think again. If you ever find yourself wondering how your personal business and your private stuff got out and everybody knows it, and especially if it's a work-related or work-adjacent matter or something like that, it was HR. I'm telling you. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, those people in HR, they're just like you. They have spouses. They have siblings. They have best friends and confidants just like you do. Okay, imagine one of your friends, maybe not your best friend, but just one of your friends, one of your good friends calls you and they share something personal with you, and they ask you not to tell anybody. 7 times out of 10, you're probably on speakerphone. Think about who's in the room who may have overheard it. It could have been your spouse, your kids, whoever. They may have heard bits and pieces of the conversation. Let's scratch that and say you were alone and nobody overheard the conversation. No matter how tight-lipped you might be, everybody has that one person who they tell stuff to with the understanding, hey, don't tell anybody. For most people, it's their spouse, right? Even if someone agrees not to say anything or to keep your secret, they're not going to keep a secret from their husband or from their wife. So now that's 2 people who know your secret. Your spouse has a best friend. He or she is going to tell someone who they trust. Again, with the understanding that, don't say anything, keep it a secret. And it just kind of goes from there. And that's how secrets get out. That's how your business gets in the streets. All of that stuff is from telling just one person. Or it's them folks in HR. Don't tell them folks in HR none of your business. I'm telling you, they are not your friends. And if you're sleeping with a coworker or your boss and that stuff goes left, you better keep your mouth shut about it. If you have substance abuse issues or, your job has a drug test thing going on and they give you this line about, hey, if you come to us and let us know you're struggling with addiction, we can help you. Yeah, they will help you. They'll help you right out on the street. I don't want to be the dead horse. Y'all get the point. If you have something that you really want to get off your chest, the best person to give it to is to give it to God. God has not broken a confidence yet, ever. Now, the Bible does say that the Lord is a revealer of secrets, but that's referencing something else. That's referencing truth that's being purposely hidden for a time until God decides otherwise. But yeah, by all means, go to God with whatever is troubling you. It doesn't matter if you haven't spoken to God in 50 years. It doesn't matter. He has all the time in the world. Whenever you're ready, he will be there waiting for you without judgment. So I hope whoever needs to hear that really heard that. All right, look, on that note, let's take a quick commercial break. Go and refresh your drinks. Text a friend or a family member and send them the link to this show so they can catch the second half of it. All right, you're listening to Live with Dr. Andre Jerry. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm James Baller of Artist First Radio, and I would like to tell you about a fascinating new book from Crime Beat's Ron Chepsick and co-author Mike Rowe. It's titled Robin Hood of the Hood, The Life and Times of Teddy Rowe, Policy Kingpin, and it's published by Strategic Media Books. The book is a historical account of Theodore Teddy Rowe, who courageously fought the Chicago Mafia, more commonly known as the Outfit, for control of the lucrative policy racket in the Windy City. Policy, often called the numbers, is a form of illegal gambling or illegal lottery, played mostly in poor and working-class neighborhoods in the United States. In Policy, a bettor attempts to pick 3 digits to match those that will be randomly drawn the following day. For decades, Policy had been a staple in the black community, but when the white mob flexed its power in the late 1940s, many policy kings knuckled under the pressure. Not Teddy Rowe. Rowe famously told mob bosses that he'd rather die than give up control of his operation. Robin Hood of the Hood chronicles an exciting chapter of Chicago history. Go to the Kindle store at Amazon and buy it for just $2.99. For information about this book and other titles, please go to strategicmediabooks.com. That's strategicmediabooks.com.
Looking for your next car? Amazon Autos has you covered. With just a few clicks, you can shop a wide selection of new vehicles, compare prices, read reviews, and even arrange pickup or delivery, just like ordering anything else on Amazon. It's the future of car buying, simple, transparent, and all online. Backed by Amazon's trusted network and partnering with local dealerships, Amazon Autos is redefining how we shop for cars. Visit amazon.com/autos and drive into the future today.
Welcome to another broadcast of Spiritual Concerns, the Deborah Ruffini Show on Artist First Radio Network. We're live from England on Saturdays and Sundays, 3 p.m. New York, 8 p.m. London. All past shows are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. I'll be your host, where issues relating to the spiritual matters of concern will be largely examined and discussed. Enjoy the show.
You're back live with Dr. Andre Jerry.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for staying tuned through the commercial break. We have a lot of fun during the commercial break. I was just laughing at something. Hey, look, if you guys are just tuning in, you're listening to Live with Dr. Andre Jerry. Tonight we're talking about boundaries, peace, and what it looks like to stop forcing ourselves to be on for everybody else. We've been having an honest conversation about friendships and social fatigue, introversion, and yes, we've been having some conversations about that damn HR department at your job. So I hope you guys are able to refresh your drinks and whatnot. Speaking of drinks, I need to give you guys an update on something. Okay, so this is not something I planned in terms of putting it on my, New Year's resolution list or anything like that. But I've decided to go dry this year. I've decided to go dry. I'm not going to drink alcohol. Now, I'll be clear. Those of you that follow the show, you already know this. I've already reduced significantly my alcohol consumption last year. But for 2026, I've decided to detox completely from alcohol. Not forever. I'm just, doing it for the rest of the year. This is not a lifetime declaration. But it may be. Who knows? Who knows how I feel at the end of this year? And what's interesting is that I'm really good with this decision. There was no fear. There was no internal bargaining. No, oh, damn, this is going to be hard. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. It's been surprisingly easy. I'm going to tell you how this came about. It was either the first or second day of the year. We had already rang in the new year. And I was meditating. I was deep in meditation. And something just came over me. I don't know what to call it. It was an awareness, a state of being. I don't know what it was, but the message was very simple and clear. It said, you don't need to drink this year. I wouldn't say it was God speaking to me directly. It felt different. It felt like a higher version of myself stepping in or something. But in either case, I understood immediately, what I needed to do. There was no resistance. There was no protest, just an inner knowing that, hey, we're going to do this. And so far, so good. I already feel lighter. I feel clearer, more present. So, yeah, I'm all in with this, and I'm looking forward to it. We forget sometimes that ethanol, and ethanol is the alcohol that's present in beer, wine, liquor, stuff like that. Ethanol is a cellular toxin. So what that means is that when we ingest it, our bodies literally treat it like it's poison, and it prioritizes breaking it down over anything else that your body has going on. So, abstaining from alcohol for 12 months, that's a reasonable sacrifice to make for my health and for my overall wellness. You know what I mean? And plus, this is something that I've done before. I've done this before. I've shared with you guys many, many, many episodes ago during my first deployment to Saudi. I didn't drink for that first year. And that was largely because I wasn't clued in yet. I wasn't clued in about how to get access to alcohol, that we could even get alcohol, because alcohol is, of course, banned in Saudi, along with weed and, everything else. So I naturally assumed that it wouldn't be made available to us. I was fine with it, But if you go to another, and I didn't know this, but if you go to another country on a diplomatic mission and you have a diplomatic passport, you are able to get access to otherwise restricted or banned items. Just depends on what it is, and with limitations, of course. But you go through the U.S. Embassy. They have a whole program. It takes probably like 2 weeks or, a month, depending on your admin, how slow they are or how fast they are, to get approved for it. But you basically go through the U.S. Embassy to get access to alcohol and other things. And I didn't find that out until near the end of my first deployment to Saudi Arabia. So it pays to be clued in with the right people. And in my case, it was for the best. It was definitely for the best because I had just lost my mom. I was still grieving. I was very heartbroken. I was a bit lonely. I don't get lonely a lot, but I was a bit lonely. I was homesick. I was detached from my support system that I was used to and, my family, my loved ones. So having direct access to alcohol at that time, it wouldn't have been the best look for me. Not then. I would have likely abused alcohol, in all honesty. So God knows what he be doing, I was already kind of heavy on the alcohol on a good day. So you can imagine how I would have threw back the drinks in a depressed state, while I'm grieving the biggest loss of my life. I don't think I would have allowed it to impact my job, but, you never know. You never know. But for sure, I would have compromised my overall health and wellness. So I'm glad that I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. It all worked out. Speaking of things that I didn't know, while I didn't know alcohol was available. I didn't. So I thank God for that. But I did have to learn some stuff the hard way when I was in Saudi Arabia. And it really sucks to have to learn shit the hard way if you can help it. And what's sad about this is that intellectually I already knew this, what I'm about to tell you and share with you. And I'm sharing this, anytime I'm sharing any of my business, it's to help you all. Somebody's going to hear this and they're going to avoid stepping in some crap. Okay? So 8 times out of 10, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, it is a horrible idea to become romantically involved with a coworker. And I knew this. I knew it. But you have to understand, like I mentioned before, I wasn't quite myself when I first arrived to Saudi. I wasn't in a good headspace. Just lost my mom, was still grieving. My mom died quite suddenly. I don't know if I shared that with you guys. She went into the hospital, and then less than 2 weeks later, she was gone. So I was devastated. I was grieving. I was in a bit of a fog. I was present, but I wasn't fully present. And it's like I was on autopilot. And so anyway, I became romantically involved with a colleague. And it just sort of happened. For me, it just sort of happened. You know, in retrospect, I can see where there may have been some intention and motive on her side, but I didn't realize I was a marked man, so to speak. And I'll get into all that. And for context, this was during the early stages of COVID. Okay, there wasn't even a vaccine available yet. It was still in development. So when I first arrived to Saudi, I was in quarantine, and I hadn't met any of my coworkers or my supervisor, not in person. I've talked to them on the phone. We've done emails and all of that. So I had to quarantine. And back then, it was for 14 days. You came to the country, you had to quarantine for 14 days. So it was a very lonely time. And everyone was in a state of panic because of the pandemic, and we didn't know what was going on. It was a lot of crap going on. And the Saudis were not playing about quarantining. They were screening people very heavily around that time. You were not about to bring COVID up in their country. They were not having it. And you couldn't pull any of this, I don't want to wear a mask BS. It was either wear a mask or we're sending your ass home. So that's how they approached it. So a couple of days before I arrived, my boss had someone go to the grocery store for me because, you know, I get there and you have to quarantine, so you can't go anywhere. So I sent him a list of some items and, you know, food things that I like to eat. And he made sure that I was taken care of during that quarantine period. And I'll never forget this. It was in October, and my birthday is in October, and my birthday fell right in the middle of that quarantine period. And listen, I've never really been a big birthday celebration person. I don't tend to really do extravagant stuff on my birthday. That's just not me. I'm always happy to see another year, but I don't really make a big deal out of my birthday. But I remember talking on my phone with my someone I was dating at the time. Yes, technically I was in a relationship at that time, but just hear me out. It was long distance. It's a long story. I don't want to get into it. I'm going to write a book about it one day, but for now, just hear me out about the story. Okay, so it's my birthday. I think I was turning 41 or 42, but, you know, anyway, I'm in a foreign country. I'm quarantined. I'm on the phone with my current situation, right? I hear the doorbell ring. So I go downstairs, and I see this really cute young lady. And I could tell she was cute. Even though she had her mask on, I could tell she was cute. And she introduced herself as one of my colleagues, and she explained that she was the one who processed all of my paperwork for newcomer orientation, and she's the one that made sure my visa was approved and my work permit and all that stuff. She got all that stuff squared away. And she had heard that it was my birthday, she said. And she knew since I was quarantined, I couldn't go anywhere, and I didn't know anybody yet. So she brought me this gift basket, this really nice gift basket that she made. And it had juice, it had snacks, soda, some other stuff. I think maybe even a couple of beers she put inside. And she wished me a happy birthday, and she was like, hey, if you need anything, I live right across the street. So, you know, on top of her being obviously good looking, she was a little short, but, you know, that doesn't matter. I thought that was really, really such a kind, thoughtful gesture that she would take a moment to do that, recognize it was my birthday, and just do all of that. I thanked her. I told her it was very nice. I went, you know, back to my conversation. But I remember being glad that at least I was working with people who seemed to be pretty nice for the most part. So, okay, so fast forward, I'm out of quarantine. I'm working with my team and the young lady. You know, she worked in the same area. Part of her job, like I said, was processing all of the paperwork for the incoming diplomats. So she had everybody's information. She had dates of birth, social, your picture, your visa. She knew your marital status. She knew everything. I mean, it was just part of her job, but she had access to that information. So as time progresses, we were working closely together. We talk every day. Eventually, she started inviting me to her house for dinner. And it was innocent enough. People did that. People would buy groceries and cook and invite people over. It was very normal because you're away from your family, so you build sort of a community with the people that you're working with. And plus, she liked to cook, and it seemed, appropriate, and she seemed to appreciate having someone to cook for and all of that. Did my current boyfriend know I was going to her house for dinner? Yeah, I told him. He wasn't really a fan of it. He advised against it, but I assured him that, everything was above board. We had been hanging out. There was nothing inappropriate going on. So, it was fine. So I thought. So over the months or whatever, we start to hang out. We get along. No issues. No one's coming on to anybody. She's good people. She put me on to all the places to go, where to shop, where to get groceries, all the cool places to visit, how to ditch your security detail and just explore the city on your own, all the stuff, She was very clued in. She was like a party girl off the clock. So I would go with her to some of the most exclusive house parties, and these were house parties where they had all of the alcohol, all the weed, hoes, just everything. And she was the one that put me on to how to register for alcohol access through the embassy. So we became fast friends, and she got to know the real Andre very early on. We were really comfortable with each other. And in all this time, like I said, nothing romantic is happening. Well, one afternoon after work, I was at her place for dinner. She invited me over to come later that night to have some drinks or whatever and to watch a show that we had been talking about. And at first I didn't see any harm in it because, I knew she kind of liked me, but it had been over a month at that point. Nothing inappropriate happened. I didn't see any harm in it. Plus, she knew I was in a relationship, so I was fairly comfortable that nothing was going to pop off. So even with that, I wasn't a fool. I didn't tell my boyfriend at the time that I was going back over there to watch a movie. He just would not have understood that. Plus, in my mind, I wasn't trying to do anything anyway, even if she was. So anyway, we're there. We're watching a movie. She had one of those L-shaped sectional sofas. So I'm sitting on one side. She's sitting on the other. We're laughing. We're joking, whatever. All of a sudden, she puts her feet in my lap. And I can't remember whether I shared this with her prior to this or not, but I have a foot fetish. So if you put your feet on me, I'm not talking about no jacked up feet. They got to be pretty feet, okay? And this is for men and women. I have a foot fetish. And she had some really pretty feet. They were nice and soft and freshly manicured, nails painted and all of that. So just instinctively, I started rubbing her feet and massaging her feet. And I started cracking her toes. And I'm just going to town on her feet. Well, before I knew it, we started kissing. And I'm talking about passionately kissing. Like this, we about to tear some shit up kissing. And just everything. And in my head, I can see my boyfriend's face, and I start to feel really guilty. And part of me was like, I'm about to tear her up. But then I had this other side of me that was like, Andre, you always do this. You always do this. You ain't shit if you do this. So I started to pull away. I started to pull away from her while we were kissing. I literally said, wait, we shouldn't be doing this. And she was kind of still in it. She was like, why? You don't want me? And, she's still kissing on me and stuff. And I was like, this isn't a good idea. We work together. I'm seeing somebody. But she did not want to stop. And she was like, we're both adults. We know how to keep it professional at work. And, I was like, I said, I know, but we got to stop. So we stopped and, we try to go back to watching a movie. We're not really watching a movie. We're just both kind of staring at the screen. And I can tell that both of us are just thinking about what almost happened. But at this point, I just kind of wanted to leave and go back across the street to my villa. But I was hard as a rock. And I was kind of ashamed to stand up. So I just kind of sat there. And we're both staring at the screen. Okay, so fast forward, the show goes off, and she's like, it's getting late. And I know that's, when she says it's getting late, that's my cue to leave. So we get to work the next day. Everything's cool. We speak. There's no issue. I want to say the following day after that, she even invited me over for dinner again. And I said yes. And we ended up watching another episode of that show. And halfway through it, she props her feet up on me again. And mind you, this is how we got started last time. And we've already established that I'm turned on by pretty feet. So she's got her feet in my lap. And I'm like, okay, she's trying to start up again. And I can already feel myself starting to get aroused. The first time she put my feet, or her feet in my lap, I told you I immediately started rubbing them. This time, I kind of froze, and I didn't know what to do. So instead of rubbing her feet, I started kind of patting them, like you would like a little dog that you just met. And that shit pissed her off. She snatched her feet off of me, and she was like, just forget it. And I was like, what? What's wrong with you? I was like, you mad because I didn't rub your feet? And she was like, nothing. Just watch the show, Andre. Kind of like that. And so we're both sitting, we're staring at the screen. The whole vibe was different. The whole vibe had changed. Everything was off. So after a few minutes, I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to my place. Good night. And then she was like, good night. Really dry like that. So clearly she was pissed off. I get to work the next day. And the way the office is set up, I have to pass her office to get to my office, right? So when I get to her office, I poke my head in like I always do, and I say, good morning. That's just what I do. This is exactly how it went. I walk up past her office. I say, hey, good morning. And she hits me with the good morning. Really dry like that. And I was like, oh, okay. I see how this is going to go. I'm just going to let her have her moment today. I know some women have a hard time when they feel rejected or whatever, so I get it. So I let it go, and I continue to be polite. Every morning I would speak like I always do, and she mumbled this dry good morning with an attitude. And this went on for like 3-4 days. I thought it was going to go on for like maybe 2 days. This continued for like a week. Until one day I got really tired of this shit because we worked too close in proximity to be having this type of shit going on at work. So one day I walked into her office and I was like, are we okay? And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, how long are we going to be like this? With this half speaking and dry good mornings and avoiding each other. How long is this going to go on? Because clearly you are upset with me. And she was like, Mr. Jerry, we're fine. And I was like, oh, I'm Mr. Jerry now. Okay, I got you. And I was like, well, look, Miss Green, whenever I didn't mean to say that girl's name. Z, block that out when you do the re-record. I was like, when you're ready to have a real conversation, you know where my office is. And so and then I walked out. But before I could walk out of her office, she hit me with this, you have a nice day. And I don't like that. I don't like that type of passive-aggressive, gaslighting type stuff. I don't like that. And back then, this was before I started to get therapy, I had to have the last word back in the day. So I go back to my office, and I'm still pissed. I'm pissed at her. I'm pissed at myself because I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. I knew better than to allow myself to get romantically involved with a colleague. I already knew this. And, because at this point, I've been in the workplace for over 20 years. I already knew what time it was. And plus that have a nice day remark, that really kind of stuck in my craw because I know what that means. That's corporate for fuck you, basically. So I'm just thinking about everything. I can barely concentrate on my work. And like I said, back then I had to have the last word. So I stormed back to her office. I closed the door behind me, and I just let it rip. I was like, see, this is why I told you this wasn't a good idea. You swore up and down that it wouldn't be a problem, that we were adults, we're going to keep it professional, all of that bullshit. Now look at us. You clearly have like an issue with me, and instead of trying to work through it, you want to try to gloss over everything and play this kind of nice, nasty game. I just kind of let it rip. And we were never the same after that. And it kind of morphed into this office vendetta. I didn't speak to her. She didn't speak to me. It spilled over into our work. It was clear to everybody in the office that something had happened between those two. And it was just unfortunate to have people in our business that way, for it to end like that. But that's the risk that you take when you get involved in these office romances. And things of this nature tend to happen. It can be all fun and exciting at first, but when that shit goes sour, it goes sour. And it's just not worth risking your reputation, your career, your peace of mind at work. And a lot of us don't like going to work anyway. So imagine adding this type of unnecessary stress to your job. And I'm going to tell you something else about this situation. Back when we were cool, part of the camaraderie we had is talking about other people at work, talking shit about people, talking about our coworkers, talking about our supervisor and all of that. After things went sour with us, what I didn't know at the time was that she had gotten chummy with our supervisor. And she told him all of the shit that at least I used to say about him and how I really felt about him. She shared all of that with him. And I had been clocked that they were getting chummy or whatever, but I didn't think too much about it. But I never thought that with her being mad at me and all of that, even with all of that, I didn't think that she would go back and tell our supervisor and share our personal conversations like that. That's not anything I would have ever done to her. So I'm noticing different treatment from my boss, and it wasn't long before I started to put two and two together. Fast forward, and I never shared this part of the story publicly, but my boss calls me into his office one day, and this was totally out the blue. He called me into his office, and he told me that he was reclassifying my position from a managerial coded position to a technical coded position, meaning he reclassified it. And whoever was the new incumbent for that job, the requirement was that they had to have an MBA, which I had, and also an engineering degree, which I don't have. I'm not an engineer. So they were freezing me out. So he told me that basically my job was ending. I would not be renewed after that 12-month period. So what she did was essentially work behind the scenes to get me fired. I couldn't do anything about it. I just had to take that loss and ride out my contract. But, when you do people like this, and Z, I'm watching the time, when you do people dirty like this, a lot of times what they end up doing is inadvertently helping you. So long story short, I ended up getting promoted to an upper management position. And just a little over a year later, I ended up coming back to Saudi for a second diplomatic assignment. This time I was in a higher position, even higher than my boss who fired me. And, guess what ended up happening to my boss? Okay, so apparently in a private meeting with the team or whatever, he said something really offensive about the Saudis. And some kind of way it ended up being recorded. Well, that recording ended up being heard by the Ministry of Defense in Saudi Arabia. And so not long after I left, they got his ass out of there. But guess who replaced him? And that's my my Alexa going off in the background. But guess who replaced my boss? Miss Thing, the one that got me fired. And, even with everything that she tried to do to me, I was still happy for her. Because, for a woman, especially a black woman, to get that level of management position in Saudi Arabia where they don't really mess with women like that, they don't want women in the meetings, answering to women, having women head meetings and things like that. So for her to attain that level of position in Saudi Arabia, it was quite remarkable. And when I saw her again, I made it a point to tell her that. I made it a point to go to her office. And, oh, by the way, when she saw me back in Saudi, you should have seen her face. It was like she saw a ghost. She couldn't even play it off. She was like, hello, Mr. Jerry. I said, Dr. Jerry. She was like, oh, you finally finished your doctorate. I was like, yep, sure did. And, I know she was probably expecting me to be nasty, but there was no need for that. My title and my position said everything that needed to be said. But I did pull her to the side, and I congratulated her on her promotion. And I told her, I said, remember when we first met, back when you were Miss Party Girl, and I told you that wasn't a good look for you. I told you stop going to all those parties, house parties, dancing, drinking, carrying on. I told her, I said, that was not a good look. That's not a good look for you. Focus on your credentials. Focus on your job and getting rid of that group of people that you're hanging with outside of work. Because I told her, I said, if anything were to happen to our supervisor, you're going to be the first one in line to take his position because of your tenure. She had the most tenure of anyone there. So I told her, you may have stopped talking to me and all of that, but you took my advice, didn't you? I see you took my advice. And look where you are today. You run this entire division, and I'm proud of you. I told her that. We never went back to being friends, but, all of that ship had sailed. But like I said, I was happy that we were able to get to a place of mutual respect for each other. So I said all that to share, to say this really. That entire situation with her could have been avoided. Not because I didn't know better, but because I wasn't in the right emotional state. Yeah, I knew that I shouldn't be doing that, but I just was not in a good space. Like I said, I was grieving, I was lonely, I was displaced. I was in a vulnerable state. And when you're vulnerable like that and you don't have the proper guardrails, you make decisions that could end up costing you your peace, your job, your focus, your career. So here are the takeaways I want you to take here. And I really want you to hear these. Being grown and educated and accomplished and all of that, none of that stuff makes you immune to poor judgment. That can happen to any one of us. Like that saying, I forgot who said it, but we're all one poor decision away from, being in jail or being in all types of situations, especially when you have something like grief and loneliness and stress going on. Second thing, office romances, rarely worth the risk. They may start out fun, they may feel exciting and all of that, but when they go left so bad. And the consequences can be something that you may not be able to rebound from. Because you still have to go to work. You still have to sit in those meetings. You still have to deal with the power dynamics and the egos and the retaliation and all the stuff. Okay? So keep that in mind. The third thing, when people feel rejected or embarrassed or hurt, and I did apologize to her, by the way, for anything I've ever done to make her feel some type of way. But when people feel rejected and embarrassed and stuff like that, they don't have sometimes the emotional maturity yet to deal with it, and they'll weaponize information that you share with them in moments of trust. So watch that. Watch that type of bitterness. It's part of my experience, and I don't, if I can prevent someone else from going down that road, that's what I want to do. Here's the last thing I'll say. Just because someone wronged you don't mean you have to become bitter. Don't become bitter at the end. God is going to take care of you. He's going to make sure that you win in the end. If you stay respectful, if you stay humble, if you just try your best to say, yeah, I effed up, I did, but what did I take away from that? What did I learn? For me, life ended up correcting itself. I got a better position. The titles changed. Everybody ended up exactly where they were supposed to be. So, there comes a point in life where you just kind of stop blaming other people and you start taking a look at yourself. So I hope I said something in this episode that helped you think, help you make better decisions moving forward, helped you protect your peace, because really it's non-negotiable. If you don't have peace, it's going to be hard to get the things done that you want to get done this year. All right? So look, I've gone overtime. That's my time for tonight. Like I said, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone. The link will be ready soon. Share the playback with someone who's learning how to choose themselves without all the guilt. All right? As always, thank you so much for rocking with me this evening. I appreciate it so much. This has been Live with Dr. Andre Jerry. Until next time, be well, be honest with yourself, and stop forcing what no longer fits. Good night, everybody.